Is that legal?
I will make it legal.
Where do you get this bureaucratic bull?
You have all the character references of a politician.
Intelligence has nothing to do with politics.
This president is not above the law.
If the dirty air don't get you, the politicians will.
The last remnants of the old republic have been swept away.
These orders have forced us to declare independence.
This is Grounds of Expediency Live. I am your host, Tim. I'm the culture war realist. I'm a rational individualist. I'm the no-compromise anti-communist. I'm the hierarchy dominator. I cite history with validity. I've got the hot takes for the bot fakes, and most importantly, I am never a victim. Random stream, impromptu stream, because there's political shit to talk about. Some stuff, quite frankly, that we've talked about for 3 years now as a possibility coming to fruition. So we want to get into that. Sorry again for the impromptu stream. I just felt the need to go. Even though I got to be up for work in about 5.5 hours. It is what it is. We're going live. Share the stream out there, guys. This channel doesn't have as much reach as OAP does. So share the stream out there. Discord, X, wherever you can. Of course, we got Stezo for life in the house tonight. Northern California brother. And I noticed in the Knights of Melvin Discord, there was some chatter kind of along these lines. And we've got Eclay Thomason in the house saying howdy, because guess what, guys? We say howdy here. Again, share the stream out there. We've got some stuff to talk about. Texas. What's going on in Texas? What's going on in the United States? We want to get into this stuff. And we've got Skirmitar, longtime supporter from Eastern Europe, in the house. So what do we have going on? You've got Republican Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, handling shit at the point where he doesn't give a shit anymore. His constituents want him to do something about problems, one of them being the border security. So for a while now, they've been taking action. Putting buoys in the river, razor wire, all that stuff. So all of this came to fruition. All of it came to a head, I should say, about, 2-3 months ago. It's lost in time. The last several months for me, on a personal level, have just all run together. The last 6 months have felt like 3 years. So sometime in the recent past, I believe a woman and a child, maybe 2 children, died in the river by drowning. And they blamed it on Texas because of the buoys and all that stuff. So number one, that's stupid as hell. These individuals, the parent especially, the adult, made the decision to get into the river and do that, right? But there was outrage because, oh no, Texas killed a couple of people because they're evil. No individual responsibility there at all. It was all blamed on Texas, on Greg Abbott, for trying to defend the border. So all that came to a head, and the federal government and the state of Texas kind of started going at it. Well, eventually they banned the Border Patrol from Eagle Pass. And you've seen the videos out there of like Border Patrol members giving fist bumps to the invaders as they come across the gate, the fence line, whatever the hell it is. So this all happened, and a federal court made a ruling that federal forces were not allowed to touch or prevent the borders from being put up, the razor wire, whatever, by Texas officials. Supreme Court overruled that this week, or late last week, whatever, and said, no, you can't prevent federal forces from doing that. They didn't say that Texas has to stop. So basically, you have a situation where, as Texas puts up razor wire, for example, right behind them, here comes Border Patrol or whatever other forces from the feds, cutting it down. Oh, let's start at the front again and keep going. A cycle. That's the legal situation right now. Yet, we're going to look and see what the media is saying about this. So that's the setup. Dan Blackroyd, a.k.a. Liquid Blake, is in the house. They were down before reaching the wire. Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many pieces to that the leftist media, as they've always done for decades now, didn't share. As they always do. They never give you all the facts. Don't read past the biased headline, and you'll walk away with a completely different understanding of a situation than actually looking at the facts. And they know that, and that's why they do it. Building a fish tank. Wow. So let's look at some of these stories really quick before we get into some more interesting stuff. So Googled Texas, right? Here you have, where's that one story at that came up earlier? It was a PBS story because I guess they did some kind of interview with some commie lawyer. Here it is. Border standoff between Texas and feds intensifies as governor defies Supreme Court ruling. Again, he's not defying it. They didn't say Texas can't put up razor wire or whatever. They said they overruled the injunction from the lower court that said the feds are not allowed to take it down. So now you're in a situation where the feds can take it down and Texas can put it up. That's the situation. So he's not defying the court. This is a reach by these outlets. They're basically drawing the conclusion and reaching for straws that since SCOTUS said the feds have the right to take it down, the implication is that Texas can't put it up. And that's a fallacious assumption. Darth Ghostface is in the house. That is a fallacious assumption. So, look at some of these headlines. The Hill, Texas Democrat calls on Biden to seize control of the Texas National Guard. Hostile intent there. The New Republic. Texas Governor Greg Abbott just took his war with the feds to the next level. He doesn't seem to care what the Supreme Court says on the border. So again, no one has said he can't put the stuff up. Don't read past the headline. That's their intent here. Just like in a real newspaper, that's always the intent. Some stupid ass headline. Look, Ma, look what the paper says about the president. And then that's it, right? You walk away with bad information, and most people don't choose to dig deeper. to peel away the layers of the onion and get to the truth. Most people don't do that. In newspapers, media, they know that, especially with the internet. It's the worst. It's been the worst now for 30 years. It's crazy, isn't it? We're coming up on 3 decades of the advent of the internet. Pretty wild stuff. Yeah, the mainstream media is the enemy of the people. There are two things. As we have 10 people watching, hit the like button, please. Share the stream out there. Thanks for being here for this impromptu Grounds of Expediency. There are 2 things, in my opinion, that have ruined America. And it's the bilious bastards in the mainstream media. And second, it's public education. Those 2 things have ruined America. And you could say higher learning, but it really starts at younger ages. The indoctrination, the pacification is a term I like to use. You go to kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd, you're learning to be pacified, to believe in government. Just think about it. Think back to your lessons. You know, late 40s for me. I know Stezo is my age. In America, that's what happens in public schools. Hell, even in private school that I went to, you're taught to be pacified, to be subservient to the government, to trust the government. So over time that happens, and the intent of the founders is pretty much gone. You see stuff out there now saying, oh, it's outmoded ideas and a bunch of old slave owners, right? Why do we believe in what they came up with? Well, number one, that system led to the abolition of slavery, right? Yeah, England got there first. But so did we. So they must have done something right. And when we abolished it, we remained intact as a country. Totally agree. As I always put on X, hashtag defund public ed. Red Hoodwinked is with us. I find it disgusting that every other country is allowed to protect their borders, but we aren't, according to the mainstream media. And it's that way with everything, not just borders. Right? Other countries are allowed to be homophobic. We're not. Other countries are allowed to be misogynistic. We're not. Give me some other ideas there. It's that way across. Oh, I got it. Ukraine, right? Other countries are allowed to have assault weapons to defend themselves from invasion and whatever else. Guess what? We're not. It applies to a lot of stuff because the mainstream media is anti-American. That's what they learn in their Ivy League schools. That's what they talk about over their lattes and their blueberry scones in the morning, while wearing their high water press pants and their dorky looking socks. Skirmitar says the EU, not that EU, the European Union is the same as the US now when it comes to borders, except Hungary and Poland pretty much. Yeah, that's the new Europe, right? Remember when Bush said that? The old Europe and the new Europe. Hungary and Poland ain't gonna take any shit. Yeah, collectivism. And don't be afraid to call it what it is. Oh, there's a difference between socialism and communism, blah, blah, blah. No, they're not. USSR, right? Oh, it was communism. Well, what does that stand for? The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, right? Doesn't matter what you dress it up as, it's all the same damn thing. And hell, we're halfway there here, and we have been for decades. In the United States. Collectivism is a cancer. What do you mean there's no such thing as an assault weapon? What do you think AR and AR stands for? That's how stupid these people are. Oregon Red is in the house. Hello from communist Oregon. I'm sorry to hear that. You know, like Oregon Trail, you have died of dysentery. Instead, it's like you have died from communism. Hopefully you're in one of the better rural parts compared to shitholes like Portland or, I don't know, Tigard, places like that. Get your kit ready. All right, so those are the headlines and pretty typical. I wanted to read this article in a minute that really breaks down the situation. But first, let's take a look at the map. And this is from Leading Report. I think they've been a pretty good source, been doing a pretty good job of keeping the map up to date. So here's the map. Governors from 17 states have now declared they stand with Texas. And what's funny about this is almost identical to when people, I don't want to call it a meme necessarily because some of these people are serious, like, hey, we're going to secede and make our own country, and they'll have some name for it. And these are pretty much the states that they break them up as on the new map. Sometimes you'll have Missouri, always you'll have Mississippi added. The Carolinas. But who is joined up? You've got Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. So these three states here. Montana is, and Idaho for that matter, turning purple just like Texas because people from here, from California, are moving to Boise and up in Montana, like there are only a few urban centers in Montana, like Helena, and Stiza would probably know off the top of his head. What's that other pretty big urban center in Montana? So people are moving there and turning those states purple, just like Texas. I knew a lot of people in the late 80s from California that were moving to Montana, and that's continued to happen. Yeah, Billings, thank you very much. Yeah. So here's how, before we go on to the other states, here's how this happens. This is how turning purple and then eventually blue happens. Let's say you have Steve from, no, we're not going to use that name, sorry. Let's say you have Scott from California, right? Let's say he lives in a suburb of San Jose, right? Not really in one of the shithole cities, but pretty close to it. And he wants to get out of there. He thinks he wants to get out of there. Like, oh, hey, I'm going to move to Boise, Idaho. I hear it's nice there. Low crime, comparatively anyway. Good economy. There are jobs. Good place to raise kids. So he packs up and moves, sells his house, all that, right? Or rents it out, whatever. Well, then he gets there, and then 2 months in, he's like, oh, man, this thing I liked, this service I used to have, it's not there anymore. What's going on? Oh, tax and spend politics aren't as strong here as they were where I'm from. Well, guess what? Someone runs for city council that promises him and other denizens of the city that, hey, you elect me, I'm going to push for this service and that service that can only come about from the collection of taxes, right? So that starts happening. Well, all of a sudden, you have a city council that's half leftist. Then maybe you get a leftist mayor, and maybe then that guy runs for governor, or he runs for state rep, or even U.S. rep. More and more people move in. It's like, hey, we're here in hey, up here in Idaho, you have all these services, and it's a different view, and maybe the crime rate isn't as bad yet, so they all start moving there, and then suddenly the demographics start to change, right? And what was once a solid red state starts to flip. In the case of Texas, you look at the city of Austin, which is the capital. You'd be surprised if you went to Austin, even 10 years ago, compared to Austin in, let's say, the 1960s. It's pretty much a hippie city. It's like the Portland of the southern United States. It's not what it used to be. So you get these big urban centers. Dallas has flipped quite a bit over the last couple of decades. Houston. I mean, those three alone, you start to add more Democrat voters to those cities, well, that state starts to turn pretty quickly. That's how a state turns purple and blue. You get a bunch of people that are carpetbaggers, oh, I want to get out of California. So they go somewhere else and they bring their dog shit politics with them. Where I currently live, 25 years now, when I got here, a lot of people started moving here. Mine was a coincidence. It was a job thing for my parents, right? So when I get here, a lot of outsiders were moving here for a different reason. And the locals didn't like it because they probably knew. They probably knew this type of stuff was going to happen. Well, guess what? 25 years later, not as fast as a place like Texas, but things are starting to flip. And it's disheartening. Soul Assassin is in the house. I doubt Texas will ever turn purple. Only a few cities are blue, but everywhere else is red. Yeah, but you got to look at, especially in presidential races, it's very hard to combat. Now, Texas may be able to do it, right? Because the population is high enough to where maybe the rest of the cities could make up, let's say, Dallas, Austin, Houston. But it's still difficult to do that. Darth Ghostface says, I wish I made the money to afford moving out of Michigan. And hey, Michigan, at one point, pretty Bay State, parts of it. Not so much anymore. California used to be the same way. And it still is. When you look at California, think about Demolition Man, right? San Angeles. San Francisco, Los Angeles area is obviously straight blue. You go a little further north, hippie area like Eureka, straight blue, but not as high of a population. The rest of the Bay Area, which is really just San Francisco extended, straight blue. You start to go to the east, you got some cities like my hometown, You got Sacramento, places like that. Pretty blue, but you go up into the mountains, all the way to the north by Oregon, all the way to the east by Tahoe, all the way down into the desert. Here, I'll show you on the map, like San Bernardino County, which is like a huge one, straight up red. But the difference is the population isn't as high as when you look at LA and San Francisco. It's just the way it is. So I think Razorfist has made a couple of videos on this, on like a constitutionally mandated electoral system for states. Because really, the tyranny of the majority happens at a state level right now, and it really always has. Let's see. Yeah, Austin is like, yeah, it's Portland, Oregon. Like that's, I think Portland's a good comparison there, because you get all the shitty graffiti and art and hippie stuff like that. And, you know, there's some history there too, music type of stuff that contributes to that reputation and behavior. And honestly, another one for you guys, Nashville, Tennessee, turning more and more liberal, because again, it's really I'd say it's the Hollywood of the South, and I don't mean Hollywood as in films, but just in like showbiz, right? And what is showbiz? It tends to be people that gravitate to the left more than they do to the right, even though the perception is, oh, hey, look, it's Nashville country music. Think about how many country music stars are not based. A bunch of them are not. A lot of the older ones were. Charlie Daniels, Hank Jr. But what's that guy's name? The one that I can't stand. He's one of the newer ones. Fat guy. And I think he did a couple of remakes and won some awards. Chris something. I don't listen to that new crap. I like the old school outlaw country. But big fat guy, Chris something. I'm waiting for someone in the chat to tell me his name. That guy came out in support of BLM. And it's like, did he really believe that? Or is he saying it just to be, you know, politically correct? Either way, it's not respectable. So Nashville is another one that's kind of flipping the state of Tennessee. And then Memphis, shithole Democrat area. Chris Stapleton, yeah. Not a base guy. And then, I don't know their names. I know what they look like. There's the other guy that did the whole gun ban thing, and he's the one that wears the cowboy hat really pushed down low, and it looks like he has eyeliner on. I don't know these guys' names. I just know what they look like, and I've seen their posts on social media and stuff like that. But kind of an aside there, just a primer on how states can turn over time. Yeah, you know what's wild about that map that we're looking at right here? Imagine every state red except for Minnesota and somewhere tiny here, District of Columbia, and that was the 1984 election results, presidential, where Reagan won every state but Minnesota, and he did not win District of Columbia. 1984. I mean, that's wild to think about. That's like the biggest ass kicking in presidential election history. I remember as a kid watching that, you know, because I've watched the election since probably that age, 84. ever since been into it, and just thinking how awesome it was. I see a lot of like edgelords trying to say, well, Reagan wasn't that good. But yeah, he was. He was awesome. What has El Presidente done for my Tropico island lately? Yeah. Yeah, I heard about that video. Yep. It's been shared all over the place about the Kari Lake stuff. Haven't seen it yet. Yeah, that's a good cutoff right there. Garth Brooks. I don't think I like anything that came out after Brooks, and not that I liked him that much, but just around that era. But you know, one of the last good albums toward the end of his career, George Jones' High Tech Redneck. So yeah, George is a straight king. Or George Strait is a king. Yeah, he's good. My wife went to see him about a year ago. About a year ago. No. Dukakis was against Bush. Reagan ran against, or Mondale really ran against Reagan in 84. 88 was Dukakis and Bush, 42. Because I've said this on the stream before. This little rhyme I learned in 7th grade, because it was during election year, was don't park your car in a bush or a quail might fly over and do caucus on your new Mercedes Benson. Because Quail was Bush's running mate and Benson was Dukakis's running mate. So, little limerick there, I guess, to remember who the candidates were. And it's wild that 10, 20, 30, holy shit, I'm old, 35 years ago when I first learned that, and I remember it. It's wild. Didn't Reagan shut down mental asylums? Probably. But again, like if you look on the whole, what he did versus what other presidents did or didn't do, huge effect on the economy. He got the hostages released from Iran, all kinds of stuff. But I think mental asylums should come back. And I think we should lock people up in them that don't need to be in society. Toby Keith, I don't know. Soul Assassin, it's something else. I don't think it's Toby Keith. Either way, those guys are all frauds. All right. So these three states here are kind of like the, middle of nowhere type of states where a lot of red voters would gravitate or just be raised up that way. And then you've got the Dakotas. These are like frozen wasteland type of places. Again, same type of people. They were raised in this rural type of life. Nebraska, largely rural again. Cornfields, wastelands. You got Omaha right here. Lincoln out here in the middle of the state. Lincoln is where the Cornhuskers are, the main campus of University of Nebraska. You got Iowa, where the first caucuses always happen. Then we gravitate down here. Kansas hasn't signed up yet because you've got some centers, some cities in Kansas, like Wichita, Kansas City, Kansas, that are not really based cities. And then the rest of the state, it's kind of like up here. Not a lot there. Flatlands. You got Manhattan, Kansas, which is a tiny town that has the university, K-State. You just don't have a whole heck of a lot in that state other than the Kansas City greater area. Wichita is like right over here. Just not a lot there. But a little surprised they haven't signed on. Missouri hasn't either. But you got Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma, every county went Trump. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every county went Trump. Obviously Texas, Arkansas with, what's her name? The Trump's media person, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor there, backed by Trump in her bid to be governor, and she won, so she's backed him up. You've got Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi. No. Now, here's the thing about Mississippi. Heavy black population in a couple of the urban centers. So, probably not as red as some of the other states here. Alabama, of course, Georgia. A little surprised by the Georgia one, because Georgia is another state that's turning purple. You got a lot of this stuff from Hollywood going over to filming in Georgia based on those incentives that they're getting, selling out the state to turn it purple and then blue. Of course, you have DeSantis. So say what you will about DeSantis and his stupid actions in the primaries, but he's a good governor. I mean, look what he did taking on Disney and all that stuff. I just think he got some bad advice, and he was dumb as fuck for taking that advice. But he's joined up, and then you go way up here, of course, West Virginia. I mean, come on. And Virginia itself. So the Carolinas, no. Kentucky, no. And then all the rest, you know, you've got the Northeast. Probably not going to see any of them join on. Wisconsin, that one guy, if he were still governor, maybe. What was it, Scott Johnson? We need Greg here to tell us that. Scott, whatever his name was, he might have signed on. You wouldn't see Washington, you wouldn't see Oregon. Depending on who is governor of Nevada, you might. Same thing with Arizona. New Mexico, nope. Colorado, nope. So really the only northern states I see signing on, depending on who the governor is, would be Wisconsin. Depending on who the governor is, Ohio. Same thing with Indiana, but never Illinois, ever. Never Colorado, too hippie. The Northwest up here, nope. Just don't see it happening. So 17 states. 17 out of 50, guys. 17 out of 50, and 17 that are tough states, right? No fruit booties in those states. Scourge is in the house. Pretty sure this map is outdated. Yeah, I did, and this one is from about 11 hours ago. This is the most recent one. If you can find one, then let me know. But this is the most recent one that I could find from that leading report account that I think has been doing a pretty good job. Good governors don't always make good presidents. That's true, but I think most of them make better presidents, especially if they're Democrat, right? I think most of them make better presidents than senators and congressmen do. But I really don't think it's an indicator either or. It's like, who is the person individually? You just never know. Yeah, I'm not surprised at New Hampshire. Well, why the hell doesn't leading report have it? Hang on. Let's go over here to my signed in account. Texas governors. What do they call this here? Stand with. That's from 10 hours ago. 10 hours ago. Fucking X is trying to hide the truth from us, guys. Alright, Stizo got it. Let me take a screenshot of this. Stop sharing. Alright, so what's the difference here? Utah, not surprised at that. Mormon land, right? North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, not surprised. Missouri, that's the first one I mentioned. Like, I'm surprised they haven't signed on. Indiana, Ohio, like I said, you know, if any northern states are going to. New Hampshire, you got to remember that a lot of times when like a Senate seat comes up midterm for whatever reason, it has gone Republican in the past. Vermont, it's almost like the yin and yang up there, right? Because Vermont, that would never happen, but with New Hampshire, it does. You do have South Carolina now, and Mississippi. 25, so that's in Alaska, of course, right? I was going to say Alaska and Hawaii. Alaska would, Hawaii never would. So you've got half the states here. The only other ones I can see, depending on who's in charge in North Carolina signing on, and then Kentucky, but no. Right now with Arizona, who's in charge? Nope. New Mexico wouldn't anyway. Colorado, Kansas, The West Coast, you're never going to see. Michigan, the oven mitt, you're never going to see. None of the other Northeast states. I mean, this is it right here. You may get one more, whether it's North Carolina or Kentucky. Anyone disagree? Nope, sorry. Michigan never will, buddy. Oh yeah, Nevada. I mentioned they would. You know, it just depends who is in charge at the time. Nevada is a very libertarian state. Yeah, but that's the thing, Stizo. Like, these Democrats can do anything they want. Abuse their constituents, and these idiots will still fucking vote for them. It happens year in, year out, decade in and decade out. Well, thanks for letting me know. I thought I had found the most recent one. Because leading report, I thought they had been keeping up with it pretty well, but maybe whoever runs it had to go to bed and they're just now waking up. Who knows? All right, let's take a look at this article. I think it's a good one that kind of sums everything up here. So again, the recap at the beginning, guys, was that we're here because Greg Abbott was putting up razor wire, right? The Fed started taking it down. A lower federal court said, you guys can't do that. But then SCOTUS came in and said, hey, injunction, they can do that. So they overruled the lower court that said the feds couldn't take the fencing down. But they didn't say Texas couldn't continue putting it up. But all these media outlets are trying to make it sound like Abbott is defying SCOTUS, like there's an implied order that he has to stop putting it up because they overruled the other court that said you feds can't cut it down. So it's like the unraveled yarn ball, right? Where somebody's knitting and someone on the other end is unraveling it, and it's just a cycle. They could put the razor wire up. Here comes Border Patrol. We're cutting it down. We're going to put it back up. That's the situation we're in right now. This right here is coming to us from Fox News. This is an actual Fox News article. It's not like a AP story that they're posting. Texas governor doing exactly right thing amid constitutional battle over border enforcement, according to legal experts. Experts say Texas has right to keep building razor wire fence, just like I explained. Latest Supreme Court decision in Texas's battle with Biden White House has sparked a showdown over the Lone Star State's constitutional authority to defend itself, with the federal government seemingly getting in its way. On Monday, in a 5-4 decision on an emergency appeal, the Supreme Court ruled to temporarily overturn a lower court's injunction that banned the federal government from cutting razor fencing Texas had installed along the border near Eagle Pass while litigation continues. So again, they said, hey, lower court, you can't tell the feds they can't cut it down. They didn't rule to say, hey, you can't do that. That's not how the court system works. SCOTUS doesn't say, do this and that. They hear cases that are presented before them. Now, if there were a case that said, Texas, Greg Abbott, you're banned from putting that up, and a lower court said, no, you're wrong, you can put it up. And then SCOTUS came in and said, no, the other court was right. Until we hear this, for now, you're not allowed to put it up. Then he wouldn't be. But all they said was, feds, forget what that other lower court said, you can cut this down. So now you have two different entities, a state one and a federal one, doing what they want to do right now. That's the situation. Late Wednesday night, Texas Governor Greg Abbott declared his constitutional authority to reserve the right of his state to self-defense against an invasion. So there's some legalese there. Let's see if they have it here. So an invasion, an actual term, not just what we think of, oh, it's an invasion, an actual legal term. So here it is, Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded. Okay, so basically they're saying, hey, Abbott can't do this unless he's being invaded. So how do you define an invasion? You see a lot of the tweets out there, posts on other social media platforms, people saying, look, they're all like fighting age males. It is an invasion. So that's open to interpretation. I don't think anything ever says, hey, an armed force is running toward your border. That's an invasion. There are ways to harm the United States by an influx of people that isn't an armed conflict, and it could still be defined as an invasion, like coming in and sapping our resources and everything else. So I tend to agree that it is an invasion, and the actions Texas has taken are constitutionally justified. That's my take. Yeah, they have the right to protect their borders. Not women and children, fighting age males. Stezo says I had to stay in touch with all my contacts in other states. Fired up my Han. Yeah. Nevada has been trending slightly in recent years, and Arizona, or trending slightly right, and Arizona left. Yeah. And again, it's carpetbagging. Tons of people from California moving to the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. Same thing with Texas, Montana, Idaho. Oh, we got to get out of Southern California. Let's go mess up Arizona. And I think I mentioned this before, but I wanted my eventual landing spot in life to be that area, like the Phoenix area. But now I'm having second thoughts because of all the crap that's going down there. I like the warm weather. I like the heat. I'm one of those people that like the heat. I like the desert climate. But I'm not going to do it if they continue trending in that direction. Did I see the trucker convoy? No, I didn't. I'll have to look up that story. All right. So here's the same assertion that I made. The Supreme Court's two-sentence order simply vacated the injunction preventing the federal government from tearing down the barbed wire fencing Texas has placed on state property while the case is on appeal. The Supreme Court's order does not prevent Texas from continuing to place barbed wire or other barriers along the border on state or private property. Yeah, there's this one property owner by Eagle Pass that's like inviting people in. Like, hey, come on down, set up camp, and defend the border. But while the case is still pending, there is nothing preventing the federal government from tearing down the wire fencing. Yeah, so again, we're in a state where both sides can do whatever they want. Yeah, and they're calling back to this one from 2012, where SCOTUS ruled against Arizona when they tried to enforce immigration laws. They basically said that's not state officials' role. And it's pretty funny they do that because they do it and then the federal officials are not enforcing the immigration laws. So who is? It's all about power. They talk about Antonin Scalia and his dissent in that particular case with Arizona. But this is a pretty good article that breaks down like, hey, this is why he's not defying SCOTUS, because they never said anything about him. They just said, hey, feds, you can continue cutting it down. I just want to make that clear. Don't read the headlines, drill into them, and find out what the hell they're talking about. And yes, it is an invasion, which means Texas has the right to self-defense. If they're not all deported and the wall isn't finished, the country's fucked. Yeah, we're already fucked, man. I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years now. We're past the point of no return. I hate to say it, hate to be negative like that, but look at all that's going on. Like something like this, that's where I'm going with this. It needs to happen. There needs to be a 25 state standoff and someone needs to blink. There are two Americas right now. And the way that I define my values and my decision making is a simple litmus test. Do your politics allow me to be left alone? In other words, do you allow me to be an individual? If you don't, then you're inclined toward collectivism, which means tyranny and human suffering. The litmus test is, do you leave people alone and let them have personal liberty? Victor Krieg is in the house. Yeah, we need a 36 state. I don't know, those 25, like I said, they're tough ones. They're the tough states. Stezo says, I love lefties are going bird shit on social media right now. They are so misinformed. Yeah. Most people are misinformed, but they're even worse about it because they allow their emotion to prevent them from getting more information to get to the truth because they want to believe the headline and what they're reading. That's where TDS comes from the headlines. They've not really looked into the situation, whatever it is, the flavor of the month with hating Trump, right? They read the headline. They're like, yeah, that validates my feelings and my opinion. I'm not going to drill any further. Quite honestly, some people on our side do that too. Need to redo state lines. State of Jefferson needs to exist. Yes. That would take an act of Congress, probably, literally. So, good luck. You know, we were going to talk about what's going on in the Middle East a couple of weeks ago, but we wound up not doing a stream. We're going to have to do another one in the near future. Just state of the world right now. So many different things going on. Yeah, shallow digging validates your opinions. Yeah, I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. Need to get the channel merch going. Channels. I'm glad you told me that one. That's great, Victor. But yeah, we need to talk about what's going on in the Middle East in the near future. This stuff, see how it develops. Lots of other crazy stuff, like stuff that I'm experiencing in my professional life that I can carefully talk about that has global implications. But for now, guys, we've been going exactly an hour, and I do need to wake up in about 5 hours, which is pretty typical sleep for me. So when you have a YouTube channel and you work 65 hours a week, you have to do your YouTube stuff late at night or on weekends. So it's all good. Yes. I've designed that Hierarchy Dominator shirt. Imagine going into the store wearing that. Like an alpha male. Thank you. Thank you so much, Victor. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. Awesome. Good crowd for an impromptu stream. It'll be on replay, so share it out there. People can watch on replay. We need to get more streams going. Need to find the time to make it happen. So we'll see you tomorrow night, about 19 hours from now, for the spacing. The panel is back. We have some stuff to talk about. Thanks for being here. Love you guys. And I'm out of here.
Is that legal?
I will make it legal.
Where do you get this bureaucratic bull?
You have all the character references of a politician.
Intelligence has nothing to do with politics.
This president is not above the law.
If the dirty air don't get you, the politicians will.
The last remnants of the old republic have been swept away.
These orders have forced us to declare independence.